otherwise there is no account linked up to it. So essentially they're the same thing. They don't really set up account to pay you. They just set up the link and they pay into your account anyway.
Yeah. So let's put it into this account.
Stephen. What's the left side? Oh boy. Mirror, you mean it's a mirror image? Hey, we got a. Hey, did you know about the new belt system? You know about the new belt system? It's called black and red. Once you get to black belt, when you get to the left side, you get your red belt. Well, if you do mirror image when you teach, you end up doing it anyways. But how often do people teach? What? Yeah. No. No, yeah. But the thing is, if you don't have any forms to teach, like some styles only have 6, you might as well teach the left side. Right? Otherwise, it's hard enough to keep a student with 20 forms. How you gonna do? No, but yeah. Back in the day, people the Siegel used to give tests. I don't remember if you remember that. He used to test. Yeah, you get your stripes. You had to take a test for stripes at red belt. So one of the things you had to know was of the punches, right? The names of the kicks in Chinese, and then you had to know the warm-ups in order. And one of the things that they did in the test, these are red belts, to do the warm-ups. You remember that? So I did away with all that, but only because it became too taxing. A lot of in Newton, the kids test them. You can barely get them to come to class. That would be, but well, they're doing that now in the school systems anyways, aren't they? They're kind of eliminating everything. So I was ahead of my time. We're going to change all the names to our forms. No, all right. Okay. So let's you can do some more. Yeah. So those are drills. We're just getting a dose of those things, and a lot of times, we do all these different forms and so forth, but we don't understand enough about how to practice them. And one of the things, we assume that we know how to practice, or a new person comes that they know how to practice. But even with the new, we don't have a lot of new kids coming, but even with the new ones, we're supplementing their first few days with the same drills, but broken down into 4 or 5 minute videos so they can do it. So it's just a support so that they can get better. So one of the things that I tried to do, but then Irina was disappointed, was I try to take the mysticism out of what we do, because mysticism is something that intrigues a lot of people and that want to study martial arts. And what is that intriguing part of some of the martial arts is that you want to become invincible. That's one of the things, right? You want to live to 108. That's another thing. And you want to, so all these things that sometimes becomes a myth in people's heads becomes disappointing for them, when they find out that that's not what it is. It's like that student that signed up with Tasso years ago, and he, the story. He I don't know exactly, but he went in there and he learned. He studied for about 3 or 4 weeks, and then Tasso questioned about something, and the kid said, "You're not Calvin Chen?" And Tasso says, "Do I look Chinese?" So the thing is, after that he didn't come back. So the thing is, yeah. He had other things to say, but that was Tasso. I can't say it here. Well, he did with words, with so many words. You would think he was racist listening to what he said. Anyways, okay. These are true stories. Okay. So we have this in first form. You have it when you get the 10 images. Right? So what came first, the first form or the 10 images? So a lot of things in Moifakun are in our forms, but you can see that when you go like this, the timing is what's critical. So we drive the movement from the body. That's a great example of driving it from the body, right? Because the momentum comes from your step. The action comes from your twist. So it's not really your arms. So if we can get that idea across, then we don't need to like put so much, muscular force into it.
I remember reading in Seabox's book about the fourth form, the stories in the back. He mentioned that in the history of alongside when he taught forms, this was before the first and second and the other forms we do came into play. And I think Long Joe was one who adopted the second form,
So Lam Sai Wing taught Jen Jiang before Moifakun in second form?
No. I was saying I remember reading the stories of the second form that we do, Laogao. 1, 2,
Yeah.
3. Was it? I think it was Long Joe who started teaching us, who adopted it, started teaching his students alongside. We came to visit the school, and he saw it. He said he thought it wasn't a very good form, and so he did a practice sparring after Long Joe. Long Joe used techniques from the second form, and alongside we liked it or something. Yeah,
so the fourth form is actually a family form of Lam Zhou. It's Lam Sai Wing. It's not even part of initially from our lineage. It actually passed down from that side of it because he did a form of Hongka too, and so second form, that probably came later on, and Moifakun was actually created by some of the Seabox. So those were not original forms. Like Gongji Kun's original form, Fu Hak Song Ying's original form, Ten Injimin's original form, Iron Wire's original form. The 5 images is an adaptation. They took that out of the 10 images and they created the 5 images. And Moifakun was derived from Zhenjiang. Laogakun came down the way, might have been from, I don't know if it was Laogaleong's family. They came from the Lao family, and Lao Sui stick form is probably from that side of the lineage too. I mean, styles don't have all this stuff, they bring it in, So, like if you look at our butterfly sword form, the one that we do, is actually originally from the Jiaoga style. They had it before we did. So, it gets brought in when students, or through friendship, they share a form. It ends up in part of your curriculum. The what? No, that wasn't it. That part. Yeah. Yeah, but it's called Dui Batlin. They have a name for that, so it was in the form, yeah. So the drunken fist, actually, it might have had it before the drunken style got there. Yeah. The stuff that you see in the movies might have came from our form. They just, increased, and then they came up with the drunken master. So, they just had to give them a bottle of wine and a couple of things, and then you had your own form from that. But, it is. It's called drunken. It's called the drunken god or something. Dui Batlin. It's like, they have all these spirits and gods. So this was the drunken god that in the movement. So I don't even know if there was really a drunken style. So a lot of the stuff that came in the movies was like could have been creations too. The 108 different techniques. The 108 is a standard number, but 108 for Tai Chi. 108 move. Maybe Wing Chun has 108 wooden dummy movements, so they claim. But the thing is, they created 108 dummies, and you walk through the chamber and you fight all these spirits. So that's kind of what it was. So, and if you think about Loga-kun, right? So the Frankie Yeast lineage, they don't teach Loga till after Gungji. They teach Gungji-kun first. And, yeah. So I studied Honga before I learned from Lomjo. Kwang Tit Fu was the grandmaster. So Fu Jiao Pai is actually an offshoot of the Lam family too. So the person that brought that over was a guy named Wang Min-toi, and he did Honga with Grandmaster Lomjo, and then he came to America probably in the 60s sometime, and he brought Fu Jiao Pai here. Well, he taught Honga in New York and he created the Fu Jiao Pai. And his history is that he studied a form called the Black Tiger, and he combined it, and that's how that came to be. But when I first learned from them, the first form I learned was Gunchi-kun, and then the second form I learned was Buhak. So I learned those two variations before I learned with the Qigong, and I had even though they're from the same lineage, they modified the form with the different characteristics. So I had to relearn Gunchi-kun and Fuhak. So then that becomes the past. You just forget it. You just give it up. Yeah. Oh, I should have my mask on. Oh, I got my shot already. Oh, where's my mask? Okay. Oh, it's okay. Gee, I felt so comfortable without the mask. I thought I had it on. Okay. So Justin, you didn't get a shot. You're too young. Did you get shots? Oh, you got your first shot. Yeah. Oh, it's already. So I think everybody got at least one. Everybody got at least one here. So everybody, I think most of us got at least one, and he got two. I got two. You got two. You're done. John got two. Yeah. So I'm. Yeah. But it's 3 weeks before you get your clots. So no, I'm only kidding. No, I'm only joking. Okay. No, we'll still probably have masks because we don't know who else. We don't have any new people that requires that, but they're saying that if you got your shots and you're among people with 2 shots, you can interact without masks. But just for the protocol or whatever, just wear a mask. If you go out, you still wear it. Because people still look at you with like you're strange if you don't have one on. But you get a little used to it. Even though I didn't have one here, because usually I'm here by myself. That's why. Okay, so let's go through that again. We'll go through Fuhak's the second half, because all this twisting and turning and the footwork. Let's see if the footwork improved. Okay, ready? Hup. Second half. Yeah. Oh, I really don't know the whole second half, right? It's okay. Paul, you could practice today, and mine will work with her a little bit, because we don't want to take away from your glamorous movements. Okay, all right, we got Rob here. Okay, hup. Okay, catch your breath, good. So we were talking earlier in the Tai Chi class about what a form is. A form is just a vehicle, like a book of movements. You know, before they had paper, they carved them on the walls to try to remember it, and then then they came out with books, and they thought that was an amazing thing that you could put stuff in print. Now that people use videos and so forth, the book's no longer as amazing. But the thing is, all it does is house movements, and you use it as a vehicle to train. So you practice the form slowly. You could practice your footwork. You could practice your hand movements. You could extract the posture and take it out and work the individual posture. And then you try to understand the functionality of movement. So a lot of times functionality can be pretty crude, mainly because you don't need to have a lot of finesse to knock a guy in the nose or punch someone out. You can just hit him with a 2x4 or whatever. So that, there's different ways, right? You can just club him with the back of the hand. But that's really not what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to achieve, if you're going to do damage, you got to do it with some style. That's what we're trying to do. So, but, aside from that, we're trying to do it with the least amount of effort and build integration, to maximize our potential from building power, right? Because when you see, this is part of the mystical side of martial arts. You see people breaking boards, you see people breaking rocks, and then you say, well, I want to do that. But all of that's tied to a technique, right? Speed, accuracy, and intensity. So when you chop, if you go like that, of course it's not going to break. If you use a 500-pound sledge, it's going to break. But you try to control your movement so the body has body mechanics, timing, accuracy, and then ultimately moving your whole quick enough to create speed at a point. And that's what we're trying to do. Is fudging is really focusing your power at a point. And that's what we do when we strike in a form in different places. And then I talk about the compatibility of movement, using the body to drive the movements. So if you're in Fuhak and you do this, then when you punch like this arm isn't finished here. It's continuing here. So what's important is not just the vertical arm, it's the fact that it became part of your torso, right? Because when you intersect here, and that's what I call attaching. In Tai Chi, you attach and stick. Once your hand, if he throws a punch, once your hand is here, could be here, depending on my body. It doesn't leave your body, or it's not forgotten, because it becomes part of this. So that's in slow motion. That's the way it looks. You're doing that, and the fact that this is here becomes this. Now I don't need to do this to do this. That's what a lot of people do that thinks that they create a bigger movement. Because when you do this, and you think you need to block to here, it's kind of more of a security thing. If he throws a punch, I want to block it up there because I don't want to get hit. But you really don't need to block it up to there. You just have to turn it to the side. Then you can do that. You see, so the mechanical advantage is really your transition. And the compatibility of motion has to be with that. So when you're doing this, you're like that. When you step back and you're here, then it becomes that. The action is multidimensional in the sense that if you look at this hand, look, see from this side, you can see better. When the punch comes to here at 45 degrees and you drop your elbow, this is what a mistake, sinking the elbow is something I talk about. If you go like this and then hold it stiff, it's going to move, but you don't have a connection because you can't tie it to your legs. When you go like this and you sink, now I have my structure. When I continue to turn, I have movement laterally to the left. If I go like this, and this is what people see, is because my body went from here to here. So it looked like it went up. So it's an illusion. That's the mystical side of movement. So there's no real mysticism if you understand what you're doing. There's a mysticism if you think that, it's something beyond human, but it's not beyond human. It's just your technique. Yeah, so what you're driving down is the neutralization of your force. Because gravity is acting with your movement. So if I go like this and it goes like this, because your force is coming forward, there's nowhere else it can go down because you're not holding it up. See, if you throw a punch and you're stiff like this, you're holding it up and it's not going to go down. But if you throw your punch and it's just there here, then when the part that you're leaning on isn't there anymore, it's gonna go away. So that's, a lot of times when you block, you say, well, like he throws a punch and he tenses his arm, you say, well, tense it, right? And so you said, well, I have resistance, I need strength to block it. But actually, while I'm doing this, he's got nothing here. Force is only one directional. So if his force is here, right, like this, then I move it down with one finger because force is directional. So most of the time they're going to hit you, the forces, so you don't really need anything to move it to the side. So that's really, the reality of an action, because a force is a vector and it's one directional. I add another direction to this, it creates that triangle. But what I did was I diverted it. So it doesn't take a lot of wind for someone to miss the target when the arrow comes. So all you have to do is intercept and then turn a little bit. So when I turn, this is the lateral force because my structure is here. Now if I go like this and I walk, then I have strength in this direction from this bridge. So that's the kind of thing that we understand from our bridge work. When we go like this and punch, that happens in Kung Fu. There's not a whole lot of difference in this and this, just what you're striking with. The body essentially is going through the same action. So because it's directional, the tool that we have most of the time is when we cover. How do you make your covering hand have more than one dimension, right? So if you look at it closely, right, let's stand in a horse stance like this, right? If he throws a punch, my first line of defense is this. My second line of defense is turning. Third line of bringing it down. Why don't I bring it down here? Well, it's going to continue to, I'm not really doing enough. I'm here. So all I need is enough to clear here. And then my body shifts. So now that's a strong position relative to what we learned in the fourth form, or Fuha, right? We're here. Right? And then we go here, we go here. So that's your structure. If I'm here and there's my structure, I don't have to go to here. That becomes useless, right? Because the movement is here in 45 degrees or 45 degrees. So if I'm here, I turn 45 degrees and I cover, right? Once I get to this position, it's structurally sound, it's closer to my body. What do I do next? I turn. So I move right to move left, right? Then we talk about right, left, center, backwards, and forward. So here, vertical, horizontal, turn. So I move right to left. And then I go like this. Why do I do this? That happens, I close here, I convert vertical, horizontal to angular. Angular now dissipates the force this way, because if I stay here, then it's the same thing as staying here, right? So I have to go 1, 2, 3, 4. This hand now is like this. Even if he lifts up, it doesn't have, when I like this and he lifts, now he feels like he's going to lift me. When he's like this and he lifts, it's a structure. So that's the manipulation of skeletal structure. That becomes mysticism, because it's a mystery, because most people can't manipulate their skeletal structure. Why? Because it's too stiff, it's too tight. Manipulation your skeletal structure is still a motor skill, right? How you manipulate it. Most of the movements that you do that requires this kind of thing is mysterious, and they made movies called The Mysterious Gongfu, right? It's mysterious because the movements are actually counterproductive. It's actually counterintuitive. It's not what you think it is. So what ends up happening is your body does things that's really not physical. So the physical side of movement is this, but not as effective as this. So if I cover and I pick and I press and I turn, that's just using your body's leverage directionally. What is the natural direction of force? This is natural. When the hands are this is natural. Up is natural. Going through your center is natural. And turning only 45 degrees. That's all you have to turn. In fact, that's the most you can actually turn. If your body's here and you turn your torso without turning your waist, then that's the most your body can turn, simply because the spine is constructed like that. It can only turn that much, and that's even using all of the pieces that are required to do that. And when you turn the other way, that's all you can turn. Now, when your spine turns, these turn. These are your ribs, they adapt. So you wonder why a lot of people can't turn, is because this is so dysfunctional. It doesn't work as a unit. It just works, to house your organs and helps out a little bit when you breathe. But are you manipulating that? Now if this moves, then these move. If these move, and these move, and these move, then you have like 8 pieces that have to be coordinated to get your cross-reference in the movement. So that's why it's more a control factor than anything. So while you're building that control factor into the body, you have to do the isolated movement, right? You isolate before you integrate, right? You can't integrate and then isolate till later, because that becomes a control factor. So that's what we're really doing, is going through this process. Now, how many pieces can you get to move over the lifespan or over the lifespan of your practice? Depends how much you stay with it. It goes away as fast as it came. Especially, I call it last in, first out. So whatever you learn that's the most complex in the body mechanics will disappear unless it's really in the subconscious. So usually the things you learn later are not in the subconscious. Like people that learn the Tai Chi form spend a lot of time in the beginning, and then you get to the second half you don't spend as much time. Even the teachers don't spend much time teaching it. So they end up not getting a good dose of the quality of instruction that they needed in the end as they did in the beginning. So you have to kind of actually work the end part more to understand what it is. So that's if you're like just trying to get through it in a couple of years. But if you're spending 20 years doing it, then you probably have done it enough and heard it enough to get some insight about it. So it's pretty deep. Now, earlier I was talking about there's 2 drill exercises that they did back in the Shaolin days. The Shaolin monks used to do it. It's called Sai Tui Jing and Jing and Yi Jing, right? What are those 2 exercises? One's the cleansing of the marrow, and the other one was working your ligaments and tendons, right? So that's all we're doing. When I say align the body, we're working the ligaments and the tendons. Circulation improves, works off your system to enhance. What all those people did was try to build longevity into their system, right? Longevity means you have to have a good immune system. So that's our innate immune system. All the white blood cells, the red blood cells, all the T cells that everybody's talking about on the news, that is already in your body, but we can't activate it as well unless you exercise, unless you move, unless you breathe. So if you exercise, you will automatically become healthier and stronger. Now, if you don't know how to exercise, which is, not just lifting weights, I'm talking about body movement, then the sophisticated movement will enhance not just neurologically, but it's going to enhance your circulation in the body and working the ligaments and tendons, right? All the stuff that we do, the fingers, the pulling, all of this stuff, sinking, turning, twisting, how does all of this stuff work? So while we're trying to make these forms look good, you got to understand how to move your body so that it's, it can be connected, can be disconnected, all these little things we're talking about. So when we're full hawk, when we do 1, 2, 3, and that then comes out. When we're here, you sink, you turn, step. This hand comes here. You drape and you turn. That's the single tiger. So what happens with a single tiger? Because my hand is here, I sink. There's my turn, and there's my connection. So when you go like this and you're like this, you see when you're here, there's a movement. Now if you go like this and you pull, you have to pull from here. You can't pull from here. You can't pull from here. You have to pull from here. And the pulling is only a control factor. To do just a little bit of connection is what you're doing, right? So as soon as I do that here, that's here, right? When you move, you sink your elbow, relax your shoulder, right? If I'm here, so how do I get my hand on top of there? I go like this? No, I go like this, and then I'm here. Because when I go like this, I don't break the contact. Because once you break contact, you lost spatial positioning. So by every movement, when you do it, it has a logic to it. It also has a continuity. That continuity allows it to be effective. If I cover like this, then I pick like this. Those are two broken movements, right? So if you cover, then you pick. So how do you pick? You fold. How do you fold? You maneuver, turn. I sunk, I turned. Right, so first I do is here, relax my shoulder, turn to this. Right? So it doesn't take any strength. 1, 2, 3. Right? That's the manipulation of skeletal structure. So that's a control factor. You have to be able to. So what's the biggest conflict? Tension, stiffness, rigidity. Because why? Because your brain says, I can't do this without strength. So then you end up like this and everything tightens because you create a structure. But that structure is just useless because that's at least that's what the old school teachers say. You do your movements, you say, waste of movement, it's no用, useless. So they don't tell you why it's useless. The uselessness is because of the excessive strength, the wrong strength. When we do Tai Chi and all these, they say use your mind and not strength. That's the whole concept of learning to use your body. So Dongging, understanding strength, Dongging, it's really getting your body to be much more astute in the way it's thinking. But it is advanced body motion, right? When you say why doesn't smart people have this ability? Simply because they're smart. Because the information that they have here that makes them intelligent and smart has nothing to do with what we're doing. It's very specific, right? So the only way to do this and get this is to do it. Specificity of training. That's one of the terms they use in exercise physiology, because if you train doing something, that's what your body is learning, and that part is tied to the neurons in your brain, the motor skill and all that stuff. So when we do this and we turn and we turn and we push and we push, when do we push? That's the other thing. If we're generating power from this leg, then the timing of that directional motion has to be cycled from here. That just becomes one unit. But when you accelerate from here to here, what has to yield? What has to yield? This has to yield. It yields because if you just bend your knee, there's nothing going to happen because it doesn't allow the connection. So there's a relationship between the two sides. This has to happen, right? The faster you go, the more adaptable your body will be. So if you turn and it's fast, right? Okay, so this is one of the mistakes. I'm going to use Margarita's. Do that again. She said, what? I did a mistake? Huh? Her foot, right? So if your foot moves here, then you can't use your hip. If you can't use your hip, then you can't settle in your stance. Sorry, Irene, I had to take that mysticism out of there. But no, that's the mystery of the movement. This shouldn't move. You know why? Because when you're here, you want this to close. And then when this closes, then you can sink. See, when this goes like this, you lost your knee position, ankles in flux, and your hip. So in Kung Fu, the traditional arts, it's called that, when you're in your stance, it's called Fao. Fao Chim, right? Fao is floating, right? When something floats, it's light. If you go into your stance and it's light, then the mapu is foul. It's loose. It's not there. When you sink into your stance and create, then the rigidity here is not rigid. It went into a position, you have twisting and sinking. So then this is, the strength is all in there. But that strength is not squatting strength. It's functional strength. So functional strength is a motor skill. Dead strength is just strength. So when we're doing these kind of things, we're not looking for someone that can squat 400 pounds. We're looking for the guy that can go into the position, or the gal. I'm not using it as a gender thing, but when you go into a position, once you're there, it moves, boom. That's the action. Now if you're here and you push, then this has to straighten and this has to set up the position. So you say, well, how does that, benefit your body? Well, the ligaments and tendons in your lower body don't get this kind of action typically. They're just kind of there. They don't move much. They don't get any action. Well, that action creates completeness, and the response of your body, because the human body really reacts and responds to what it's doing. So the ligaments and tendons will get stronger and more pliable even as you age. So the thing is, we don't know how to do that typically. The average person doesn't know how to move their skeletal structure, doesn't know how to use their ligaments and tendons correctly, because just like beating, arm pounding, leg pounding, back in the day did a lot of conditioning. The Japanese used to do the makawari board, hit those things to build calluses and to build impact resistance, because when you hit something, your bones get stronger. When you bang it, your bones get stronger. Why? Because your bone matrix responds. And if you're banging it all the time, it starts to get denser. If you're hitting things all the time or thrusting your fingers in sand, your fingertips will get calluses. Your fingertips will get tougher because your body will respond. And it creates dead stuff that has no feeling. I don't do that because we don't want to do this at that level. Maybe back 100 years ago you needed to hit a bull or something and you needed a pretty strong hand. But most of us are going around hitting anything really. So why do you need to have calluses and all that stuff on your hand? Back in the day there was that training, and when I was young I did do some of that training. I used to break stuff. My teacher actually told me to stop doing that. He says you're going to kill the nerves in your hands. And he was right, but it's a good thing I listened. Yeah, because yeah. Yeah. But you know how he got those, right? No, he used to chew his knuckles all the time. Yeah. Now you see kids like that, they chew on their knuckles and they got those. they call Iron Pan. Passed away, he passed away a couple years ago. No, he's the guy that did Iron and Silk, the movie. Paul knows him pretty well because when he spilled coffee on his hand, there goes the mysticism. So that's why I try to debunk it. I don't want any mysticism, because if there's mysticism, you're going to say, well, this is what you said, and this is what you're supposed to be able to do. Well, we just try to move better, improve our movement, and understand the dimension of movement. And you should line up. Well, not line up so the nose. Not that's this. When you push out the striking hand, you strike. It should be the nose, the hand, and the knee. So that line will be where you're targeting for. And the reason why that happens is because when you do that and you find that center in that direction, your hip would have closed. Yeah, I'm not gonna touch you. Yeah. So that's what you're trying to do. So that's your line. When you throw a punch, boom, it's on that line. You throw, boom, it's on that line. It's on that line because this is the line. That's something that Sifu used to stress. And then it's like shooting an arrow. In Tai Chi we call it the 3 arrivals. All right, the 3 arrivals. The eye to the target. When all of those come together, then you hit the target. So. No. No, because not everybody teaches it like that. However they teach, I don't know, because I'm not their student, and I'm not. But I know that it's not across the board that Sifus learn this kind of technique. Well, because not everyone learns this side of it. So you learn form, then you learn strategies, but you learn principles. So a lot of people are lacking in principle. So this alignment thing is principle. And so center line is universal in a sense, like Wing Chun uses a center line, Yet He Mon uses a center line. The center line is universal, but how do you get your body to find that center line is the missing link sometimes. So we know when we go like this, there's a center line, but what's the center line for? Getting my center line, or is this getting my center? What gets you to your center line is the twisting of your spine and your back, the turning of the hip, and the alignment of that back foot. When I go like this, there's the center line, there's the palm, there's the nose, there's my heel, the supporting foot. See, so those things become, innate. It becomes part of you. When we do this, right, and this, a lot of the other styles of Hong Guard, they do this. They're more horizontal and they slant like this, and it's oblique like this. We don't do it like that, or at least I don't do it like that, because when you slant here, if you don't turn your body, and you just go like this, that seems like it works, but it's actually here, from here to here to here. So the hand is like this. It should have something that goes through to the root of the support, which is your leg. That's your pillar. You have to find that position. So when you're here, when you punch, like Logakun, right? We have this punch. If you don't know this triangle alignment, you don't know actually where it is. So without those principles and those guidelines, even as a teacher, if you don't know it, you don't know how to fix the student, right? So that's why it's important to have consistency. So because we have these guidelines and these principles, if you understand them, then people that watch from other schools or competitors, they see the consistency of the movements and the position. So the consistency, not because we do it 10,000 times, The consistency comes from the fact that we understand the concept and we strive to do that. And you see the position. You see the position. These things become just part of your natural course of your training, because your body becomes much more astute. It knows it. You can learn 100 forms, not know this, and the forms are not going to progress. You don't have accuracy in those movements. So this is the stuff that's going to take you to the next level of understanding. So the thresholds that a student gets to, where it doesn't seem like it's going anywhere, is this kind of stuff. But this kind of stuff is what you really struggle with. So this is sort of the difference between, a mediocre martial artist and a superior one. But anyone that has good Gongfu has this stuff. So, it's not just one person in the world. A lot of people have it. But there's a lot of people that don't teach. So those people, you may never get the experience from them. So old school teachers, they're dying out. But the modern teachers, on a physical side of it, they're very good too. Like the wushu, some of the wushu people are amazing. But some of the teachers that coach them, or those are still pretty senior. So they do know what they're talking about. It's whether they can, get the message out, to their students or not. So the stuff that we're doing from our drills or Gongji-kun is really, like when we first learn it, it's just a bunch of movement. But if you go through the movements and you find the integrity in how you move your body and how you open and how you push the intensity, can you feel it as the strength comes down to the ground? Can you lift and you sink and you thrust, sink, and do you feel the strength in movement throughout the whole body, not just the hands, and then it's the legs. That's a broken movement. So you have to get that experience and feeling from only way is to do it. I talk about this stuff only for you to have some information to house here, and then you can take it and run, and you can do whatever you want with it. And then when you understand it, then you can see the whole body is actually involved. It's engaged from the top of your head to the sole of your feet. And that's a term my teacher used. The bottom of your foot to the top of the head. The only part that's little firm is your feet. You grip the floor. From the ankles up to the top of your head, it's all fluid. It's movable. So that's why it's, and one of the reasons why my teacher had so many principles and concepts, because he researched and he looked and he followed and he found lots of teachers with a lot of depth of knowledge. So he always was in search of. So that's why when he went to Hong Kong, that picture, by the way, of that dragon was done by a very famous Bagua master. I think he died at 118. Yeah. No, not him. This guy. Oh. No, not this guy. This guy's always in China. He was one of these imperial gods back in the day. He killed a lot of people as a god. You see him on YouTube. He's in his 80s. He was in his hundreds when he was performing. Double broadsword. And he's a Bagua. Spell his name. I don't know his he doesn't have an English name. Jidu. Yeah. He Oh no, Sifu went and looked for him. We'll look to learn from him. You see, back in the day, even the movies they talk about challenge.
I mean, I heard it wasn't like normal, like it was more just like when we play.
Yeah.
We played with him, and he was like, "Oh, I want to learn from you."
Oh yeah. Well, Lam Zhou up there was a pretty famous, well-named teacher. So my teachers used to say, you have to learn from people with, well, they call them Ming Lu. Ming Lu is well famous. So you look for the people that have been branded like that. Those teachers are not easy to get, and they're not necessarily wanting to teach you, because they didn't have schools. You become a student. So when Sifu learned from Gumlo, he had to take the subway, because he didn't drive, like 45 minutes one way, 45 minutes to another way, to another village in another town to learn. And actually he went many months, and then he wouldn't teach him anything because he didn't want to teach. And then finally he became his student. So that's like the movies, Anyways, Wu Bao. So yep. So a lot of stuff I talked about Rob, because he went to the old school. He listened to the people. He didn't speak English, so it was always translated.